All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's lecture on 1949, a critical year in the Cold War. Okay, there are two things that are going to happen. One, the Soviet Union is going to get nuclear weapons. They're going to test one so we know they have one, they're capable of using one. This is like if North Korea ever got one to land onto land somewhere else. And to have a successful test. We're still waiting for it. But that's how big this was. Okay, that's one. Soviet Union gets nuclear weapons. Two, China falls to communism. Now our whole policy is containment, to contain communism. One of the largest nations in the world falls to communism in 1949, and it will scare us, the living daylights out of us, that our aid to the nationalists in China didn't work. And so these are going to be two huge events in this year to heighten this tension between the Soviet Union and the United States. Now, first, Soviet Union explodes its own atomic bomb. Okay, this immediately makes us very concerned about a World War III because now it doesn't become traditional fighting. It becomes the idea of mutual assured destruction, meaning that if we get in a war with the Soviet Union or the United States gets in a war with the Soviet Union, that when we use these weapons, our country is probably going to be destroyed. So you'd have to be very sure that it is the last resort. This is going to come along with the policy, especially during President Eisenhower's presidency, where he's going to use the idea of brinkmanship. This is going to come from his Secretary of State. It's basically we're going to push you to the brink or the edge of war to protect our interests. We're basically going to play chicken. And we're going to see who gets out of the way. Okay? And if someone doesn't get out of the way, we are going to blow each other up. This meant that each side started to stockpile nuclear weapons and also how to get those weapons to the United States and to the Soviet Union. This is where we'll get the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is where our ally in Turkey, which we helped in the Truman Doctrine, will become very necessary. So this arms race, you can see, is going to last 4 decades. And you can see right here, almost to 1985, the Soviet stockpile will be this high. We'll kind of come here and we'll start slowly working down, okay, until we're right here. If you see at the bottom, the amount of nuclear weapons all these other countries have is so minute in comparison to the United States and the Soviet Union. This is all because of the Cold War. Now, this is the thing that would scare people, and this is a sweet website. Okay, you can use old nukes or current nukes on areas, and I'm just going to use Watsonville. Okay, so the first one we're going to use is a Soviet missile from the Cuban Missile Crisis, so right during the Cold War. We'll detonate. Okay, you can see right here, total fatalities, 56,000, estimated injuries, 100,000. It would reach all the way to Morgan Hill. This area, the fireball radius would be all the way through Aptos, Prune Tucky, Moss Landing. Okay, now let's go to this. This is the first hydrogen bomb, which will be detonated in 1952. The United States will have it first, and then the Soviet Union. Let's see what it does here. Whoa. Okay, 76,000 died. Injuries went down a little bit. Okay, but you can see the range is quite bigger. Now, last, I want to show you the largest Soviet Union bomb tested, the Tsar Bomba. Okay. It would reach all the way to Sunnyvale and all the way through Gonzales, killing 174,000 people. So this is why this is taken so seriously. The second event is China falls to Mao Zedong and communism. Okay, this is huge. as it will create two of the largest nations being communists, although their relationship will be very, very fragile and will end up actually having them at odds in the 70s. But at the beginning, this really scared us, especially with our policy of containment. This picture was taken, this is for all those who fought in the Red Army. Okay, this is the memorial for it. This was taken by, if anyone remembers, Raymond Ho last year. It was at our school. He gave me a bunch of pictures. So you'll see a bunch of pictures. They're all from him. So this is the memorial for it. Now, pre-World War II, China was fighting this civil war. And so we'll get Mao Zedong and the communists and Chiang Kai-shek for the nationalists. Who do you think the United States will support? If you thought the nationalists, this is correct, and the Soviet Union will support the communists, not necessarily pre-World War II. After, though, it will become very important. Now, this is a prison and a torture chamber that is basically a museum now. So we will aid the nationalists. However, the nationalists had very poor leadership, were super corrupt, and do not have very much popular support. The communists under Mao Zedong, though, are much better trained in guerrilla warfare, which was needed at this time, have total Soviet support, which they will for a while, even as they become a communist country, and were very popular amongst the peasants, or the majority of the Chinese population. And it will eventually win in 1949, and China becomes the People's Republic of China, which it still is today. And this is important to understand. Now, there's two things that happen that are very similar to the Soviet Union. First, we get the Great Leap Forward, which is very similar to the 5-year plan. And it's actually, China will have a 5-year plan. Okay, it's to create a modern industrial society while correcting large collective farms. Okay, collectivization we saw in the Soviet Union. The Communist Party made up less than 1% of the population in China, but they were able to strictly control everything. So it's not necessarily true communism. Remember that, communism in quotes. It is ultimately going to fail. There is no incentive for people to work hard. It is poorly planned, and there's going to be a famine that kills 20 to 45 million people. As Mao's power kind of wanes because of this failure, he's going to start something called the Cultural Revolution, much like Stalin's Great Purges. He's going to remove rivals, and he's going to focus on the youth to become the new leaders, or this, as you can see here, this Red Guard. Ultimately will have to be put down because they're becoming quite powerful and it's becoming a bad thing. But what this Cultural Revolution does is glorifies peasants, shuts down schools while banning certain books, okay, those books that aren't in support of Mao and the Communist Party, created hard labor camps, and will eventually end in 1976. But the most important thing that you understand about China falling to communism is that it's going to scare us. It is going to scare us a lot because of what it shows, that communism is spreading. And so our focus is going to turn from Europe with such things as the Berlin airlift, okay? And it's going to turn to Asia. And this is where we're going to get the Korean War and the Vietnam War to stop or to contain communism from spreading. Have a wonderful evening.